March of Freedom.
Indeed.
Started July the 17th of this year, but that's the actual physical march. Please give us a little lowdown on what brought you to doing March of Freedom this year.
It was something that deep down inside I knew would happen eventually. I even had an idea in about 2011 after Egypt started protesting and stuff like that. I knew that it was almost time that people were waking up and they wanted change and they were demanding change, and there's people all over the world fighting for that. And I knew that I wanted to help with that some way, and there was an idea to just walk to Ottawa at first, to Parliament Hill, and this was in 2011, so this is a couple years ago. But it developed over the last couple years, and it was something I didn't know like exactly the details or when I would do it or anything like that, but I just had a feeling that it was going to happen, like I needed to do something. And so the March of Freedom idea came into play, and I told the best man at my wedding, Mike Baricelli. He actually helped me run the record label too, Archaic North. He was like co-owner, I guess you could say. I told him about it a little while ago, and he was pretty shocked, I guess. You know, but he knew I was going to do it. Like, he knew that when I say something, I'm going to do it. So he was like just wondering when I was going to do it, I guess, like what time. And I just felt there were certain things that happened in my life that led me to make the decision that now is the time. And I didn't want to tell anybody about it, because then you'd have people saying, oh, that's crazy, or you'd have people try to stop you, right? And I knew that this is something so important that I didn't want to be stopped. I had to already be, like, it's one thing to look over the cliff, right? And then when you jump, there's no turning back, and that's where I wanted to be. I wanted to be one step over, already involved with it, no turning back whatsoever. So I decided to do that because of several things, really. The record label is one thing. I was a stay-at-home dad taking care of my two kids while my wife went to work, and I was trying to run my own business at home, doing the record label thing, running the World Public Union, making documentaries, doing all that kind of thing. Just an artistic creation, because I've always been into creating things and music and stuff like that. So my wife came home one day and she said, I got laid off from my job. And I was like, really? I'm like, I knew it was going to happen. I knew that she was going to get laid off, because I see a massive increase. They're saying that in the next 10 years there could be 85% job loss due to technological unemployment. So this is the beginning of it. This is the beginning phase. So many people I know are getting laid off now, and it's quickly coming. Like, it's more and more, it's becoming more apparent. And instead of putting a band-aid over the problem, I wanted to go right to the source of the problem and do something about it rather than just ignore it. I could have went and got a job and just supported the system and took care of my family that way, but then the problems would still exist. And I realized that, which is why the idea for the reality show came into play. That was actually a recent development. That just I made documentaries, so I figured, why not do something different, a reality show, and make it a real reality show, not like a fictional reality show, because you'll see a lot of fictional reality shows out there where people have to sign waiver forms, and it's all pre-planned. A lot of these reality shows, so-called reality shows, right. And this is a real reality show, and it's for a good cause, I think. So that's kind of like what led me to do this.
So would you say your awakening was in 2011?
No, it was before that. I've been making documentaries since 2009, and even before that, I was learning a lot about different things that were going on in the world. A lot of it was secret knowledge, ancient wisdom, stuff like that. I was really into history and psychology, biology, physics, so many topics that I was really trying to get a good understanding on, and I think that's kind of reflected too in the music that I was doing with Woven Ancestry and stuff, the lyrics that I was writing and stuff. A lot of it's reflected in that, but that's kind of like what got me to the awakening process. I don't know, it's when 9/11 happened, I knew something was different about that, and that really shocked me, to see that.
Yes.
And that was the year my grandfather died, and I was working a job at a call center, and I went to work and they're like, we're shut down. we're not going to be calling the United States during this time.
Right.
And that was our clientele. So I essentially got laid off from work because of that. And that's kind of like the beginning of when I started looking into things a little bit more. I wasn't really aware of 9/11, the details of that right away. It took me a few years to actually dig into it and figure out what happened there. But that's kind of, I'd say it was around 2006, 2007 when I really started waking up and wanting to know about this stuff.
Yes, about the awakening. And the moment of awakening for you was in 2007, 2006.
Yeah, I explained that on the video,
Yes.
I think.
And so from there, what people are doing as far as living from the moment of birth
Yes.
throughout their life, we discussed that they are being transformed into a certain mode of life by the government. We are being dictated to without necessarily being aware. And so with New World Order, you have come across the situation where you now are starting to make people aware that this is what's happening. This is not your life. This is the life they want you to live.
Yeah, this is our life. It's not just my life that this is happening to. It's our lives. It's the world's lives. It affects every human being because we are all the same in very specific ways. We all require, you learn this in school even, we all require basic needs to survive. Water, food, shelter, warmth, electricity, communication. These are the modern things that we need as modern human beings to survive every day. And these are the things that we are working our jobs for. And our jobs are the ones that are exploiting these resources, exploiting these needs and fundamentals. And if you don't have the money or you don't have the access to this stuff, then you will be left in the dirt to die. And there's so many people that are dying or sick. They get diseases. Their children aren't brought up right because of this. There's so many side effects, but they're not side effects. They're effects. They're direct effects because of this. And it's pretty crazy. It's like we were talking about earlier, the awakening process. It does feel like an awakening process because once you start seeing it, it does wake you up. You feel it inside of you, in your mind, in your body, in your soul. It just wakes you up to what's really going on, and then you become really interested in that. And it's a rabbit hole. So once you're going down the rabbit hole, you can't really stop because you really want to know more because you're protecting yourself by learning this stuff. And then you could protect other people. You could protect your children just from a bit of education and a bit of awareness or awakening, like you said, right? So yeah, it is.
Yes.
It does really feel like an awakening process when you really start to learn about this stuff. And I felt that this informing other people about what I've learned and what I see going on is probably the most important thing I can do as a human being. Music isn't. Music always was at first. I was always into the bands I was in, running my record label and all that stuff. But those are all personal goals, personal interests that benefited nobody but myself and the band members that I was in a band with. And the people that listen to it, they enjoy the music and they listen to it. But really, the world was going on and actually increasingly getting worse the more that I would not pay attention to it. And it really does boil down to your own life. Like, if you can change your own life and your own outlook on this, then it will change your world. You will see your world change as soon as you start being more positive and stop being so negative. It's called contagious apathy. That's what it is. It's contagious apathy. People are accepting the negativity in the world and not doing anything about it, and then they become programmed and developed in that world where they are apathetic, and they're spreading it around like a contagion, and everybody starts thinking like that, and nothing gets done. The problems don't get solved. In fact, they get worse. And I felt like it was a time in my life to put everything on hold, even my family, even my music, everything on hold to try to make a difference, however I could.
Can it not be said then, through a band, through your music, that you can help spread the message in that medium as well?
Yeah, you can, but most bands don't. Most musicians don't.
In the metal world, I
There's
find
very
in
few.
many, compared to other genres, I find the metal world does address political issues, world issues to some extent. I think it plants the seed for some people, whether or not you can be a real political band per se.
I can't think of one.
But that's something that perhaps you could even think of doing with your band at some point in time when you've done your awareness campaign at this point.
I find for musical genres, hip hop is the music genre right now that people are using to spread awareness. You've got groups like Immortal Technique, you've got Low Key. These are all artists who chose to do that, who chose to speak positively in their messages and their music to try to change the world and make a better place. Because you understand their words a bit more too. With metal music, it's a lot of distorted vocals and screaming, throat singing and stuff. But I really was, that's one thing with the metal music too, is like I didn't find any political bands really. There's some, like Megadeth sings, has some songs about that, you know what I mean? They do, but they don't solely focus on that. That's not what they're known for.
Right.
And I can't really think of a metal band in the world actually
that
totally is focused on making a better world, because they'd almost get ridiculed. Because a lot of metal bands are hateful. They sing about hatred and evil and hurting people, murder, death, suffering. That's the contagious apathy. That's what's happening.
Direct link.
Direct link, yeah. And metal is probably the most guilty of all musical genres for that. And there is hip hop too. There's a lot of gangster rap and stuff like that. That's just horrible for the mind. Horrible what would you say?
Emotion.
They teach
Ideology.
you to go out and have sex and go to the club and spend your money and abuse women and shoot each other and join gangs and shoot up drugs and all this stuff. And that's not a good message.
No.
And then they're playing that on the radio, they're playing it on Much Music, they're promoting that because they want people to live in a world like that so that they can create this chaos in the world. They don't want us to love each other, they don't want us to work together, they don't want us to be unified, they don't want us to make a difference. They want us to continue living our lives, spending our money on junk food, on alcohol, on drugs, or whatever they're trying to get us to buy. That's why there is commercials and advertisements, because it's all about monetary gain, and in the end, and it's also about controlling the world's energy, because we are all connected in the world. Human beings are all connected, especially now with the internet. We're way more connected, and they don't want people connecting in an umbrella of love and sharing and compassion, and they don't want that because they would rather us be hateful and not concerned about other people.
So would you say that your March of Freedom is geared towards the everyday Joe who is trying to get through their life, everyday life? Or are you also trying to create awareness to those that be who are the ones dictating what is happening in the world?
Everybody, all human beings. It doesn't matter if they're a politician or a police officer or a musician or homeless on the street or working a McDonald's job, 9-to-5 job, anything like that. The problems that I'm trying to promote and educate people on are actually problems that affect us all. Because you could say that if somebody has enough money and they're working a good job, then they're comfortable and they're fine and they'll be happy with their life living like that. But what they don't understand is that they're a victim of contagious apathy because they're not concerned about what's going on out there, and they don't know that there could be a better way. And I've really tried to focus on this March of Freedom on offering solutions rather than just talking about the problems, to inform people and educate them on the solutions that we could overcome these problems with. And I've figured out a lot of solutions that I haven't talked much. Most people have never heard me talk about them, actually.
And will you be revealing some of your solutions with your lectures on tour as you're going through your march? Yes,
there's seminars and lectures set up in Toronto, Kitchener, Hamilton, Oshawa. There's something on Parliament Hill and Montreal. So those are the major cities in this area that I'm going to be speaking at. And it's not just me though. I don't want people to think that I'm an egotistical person, because I'm really doing this for selfless purposes. I really do want to promote. But if it takes somebody to step forward and start this, then I don't mind being that person. And I don't want people to think that I'm doing it for my own selfish reasons or anything, because I'm really not. But at the seminars, I'm going to be talking about this stuff and offering solutions, and then afterwards taking a Q&A to involve everybody that's there watching and get their input so that we can talk together and figure out better solutions, maybe. You know,
where to go from here.
It's called evolution, and we need to evolve because we're de-evolving. as a species. We're being dumbed down, and we're not living to our full potential. If they have space stations right now in space, and there's still people starving on the streets, and there's still villages in Africa who don't have clean drinking water, and it's all because of money. And that's one thing I figured out, is it's all because of money. Every problem that everybody ever has out there is pretty much rooted with money. Their attitudes, crime. If you got rid of money tomorrow, let's just say,
Right.
you would get rid of greed, you would get rid of corruption, you would get rid of divisions, we would all be equal. There would be no need to suffer for water or anything like that. The basic needs for human survival are water, food, shelter, warmth, electricity, communication in modern time, and those are the things that we pay money for.
The physical things.
Yes, we work our jobs to pay for those things. So when we get money from our jobs, we're actually putting that money back out to pay for these things that we need to survive, and that's why nobody's getting ahead. But if you got rid of money and everybody still work their jobs, and a really important thing I ask people is, what do you want to be when you grow up? Children, I've got videos of children explaining to me what they want to be when they grow up, or anybody, like, what do you want to be with, what do you want to do with your life? That's a very important question to ask anybody. And what I found is that every human being I've talked to has a different interest in life, and all these interests would contribute to the society. So people do want to do things that contribute to the society.
Right.
And if we got rid of money, then they would be doing it to contribute to the society rather than keep themselves alive or making a living, because that's what it is. You're making a living. So if you eliminated money, then let's just say somebody wants to make televisions because he has an interest in electronics. I've met people that said that. So they would be working to develop the best technology for TVs. And everybody would be entitled to a big screen television because we work and contribute to the society, and we'd be honored with the big screen television. Now, if somebody wanted 10 big screen televisions, it wouldn't make sense because they would have what they need and they wouldn't need anything extra, really. They'd have everything they want in life. In a world without money, you wouldn't be able to sell them.
No, because that's a hoarding too.
It's hoarding, yeah.
Yes.
So it would get rid of hoarding. Another
Right.
thing, right?
Right.
So money, get rid of that, and you get rid of a lot of problems. And we can live in a world without money. It's just we have to do it, and we have to think about that kind of world and really work for that. And you'd also get rid of wars. You know what I mean? There wouldn't be a need for wars. If there is somebody causing crime and doing something, the community could take care of that. But a lot of crime is committed because of somebody's personal, the way they were raised. They were raised to be hateful. They were raised to be greedy and hoard things. Personal gain, yeah.
Yes.
So if you got rid of the money, there would be way less crime. I don't even think there would be any wars, and then the military would be there to protect the country. You wouldn't have foreign troops going overseas to invade other countries for resources, because that's why they're doing it. They're going over there for the oil. They're going over there for nickel. They're going over there for gold, for whatever resources. Fresh water is another huge one. A lot of wars have started to gain spring water, fresh water, because water has become privatized now. So water is a very highly profitable resource. So if we didn't have money, then we would be using the resources more wisely, I would say, and there wouldn't be companies hoarding it all and polluting the environment. You know, that's another thing. When you're greedy, you're not concerned about the environment, and these corporations and the people that are running the corporations, the governments that allow these corporations to harvest the resources are greedy, and they're the ones that are causing all the environmental problems that we have.
What would you say to bartering
Bartering?
for services?
Well, there's already people that do barter. I mean, if one person is a mechanic and the other person's a carpenter, the mechanic won't pay for carpentry work for his house, let's just say, and the carpenter won't pay for mechanic bills for a car or anything. So there already is bartering going on. It's just done secretly and between people privately.
Right.
I know the Freemasons are definitely huge on bartering. That's how they increase wealth. That's a way that they increase wealth, because we're living in a world where there is money and bartering going on. When you barter, they don't need to spend money on certain things, and then they get rich, and that's probably how they climb to the top. I can't really put my finger on it and say that's exactly how they get to the top, but I'm sure that these people that are connected, that are high up in power, they are doing the bartering things so that they don't have to pay money, and I don't know. But I think I don't think there's a term for it. Like, you could call it, I'm not a communist, I'm not a person who thinks that bartering, I'm not a socialist, I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a Republican, I am a human being.
Right.
That's what I
You're
am. I'm a human
representative
being.
of the population of the world.
And as soon as you put a label on something, then there's limitations.
Yes.
And people forget the fact that there's fundamentals in life that we should really be focusing on, and we could live in a better world. And when you put a division on it, that's one thing I'm finding too, is divisions is a major problem. Like, people are divided. That's where they want us. They want us to be divided. That's why you're seeing all this racism stuff on the television lately. You're seeing the
that
stories.
Court case.
Yes, exactly. The Zimmerman thing, all that stuff. So you're getting the media promoting racism, which is causing divisions between those people that are involved with the races. When really we're all human beings. We all use a toilet when we have to go to the bathroom. We all need food. We all need water. We all need the sun. We all need love. We all need compassion and caring. And when you put a division up into place, you lose all that.
I think of Pink Floyd, Division Bell. For some reason, that came right to mind. But you also touched on the Freemasons, which is something I want to talk to you about. We all know that Freemasons stemmed from the Templars.
Yes, the Knights Templar were the ones who actually first designed money and banks and lending. They put kings in debt, actually, the Knights Templar. They were loaning kings money with interest, so you got the interest margin there, which is another major issue. Credit card companies still use that to this day.
Yes.
That's how they make their money, and they get filthy, stinking rich off of that, and we are the ones who are paying for it. So it's an ancient practice that still has not been abolished. We haven't even got rid of that. And the Knights Templar were actually persecuted for that. They were driven out. They went to Scotland. They spread out throughout Europe. But Freemasonry actually dates back even longer than the Knights Templar. It does. It wasn't called Freemasonry though back then. It was called the Mystery Schools. It was called the Babylonian Mystery Schools, which is where they developed the secret knowledge of ruling class, slaves, stuff like that. And you have that in Egypt, even in Sumeria. Sumeria is the oldest civilization that we know to this date that we can find in the world. So you have the Sumerian technology. You have the oldest king list is actually the Sumerian king list, and the Sumerian king list was a list of rulers. So that's the problem. People for centuries have had a leader. You know what I mean? And we don't need a leader. We need ourselves. We need to work together within ourselves. We are our own leaders, but as soon as you put a leader or you elect somebody, or actually they're not even electing anymore, they're selecting these people to go into play by their backgrounds and their corporate agendas and stuff.
Yes.
If a person like me would never become Prime Minister of Canada because of my agenda, right? They would never want me to do it. Even if I had all the votes in Canada, they would still not put me in there because it's not beneficial to keep this system going.
Right.
So as soon as you need it, well, you don't need a leader, but that's what they think that we need, is a leader. And for a long time, there's always been a leader, and that's what it takes. A community will have a king, and then all the people work for that king. The king gets rich, and the slaves are doing the labor and keeping that community going.
Yes.
It's the blue-collared workers, it's the people that are working and contributing to the society that make the society, and yet we give it all away to a leader. That's another major problem that I think we need to address.
So ideally, I guess we could blame Freemasons or the Templars for the system we are currently living in.
Well, I'll tell you, I've left from Sudbury and I walked from Sudbury to North Bay. I got a ride 20 kilometers once from Hager to Sturgeon Falls because there was a storm came in and there was actually a tornado that tore apart calendars. So I'm glad I got out of there and into a room where I was safe.
Yes.
But then in Jocko Point, I twisted my ankle and it was all badly damaged. So I had to get another ride about 24 kilometers to North Bay. because I had a place to sleep there for free at a friend's place. They let me stay there to rest my feet and injuries. So I was doing that, but every single little community that I've been to, in every town, there's a Mason Hall. And if it's not a Mason Hall, there's a Lions Club, there's a Knights of Columbus, there's a Shriners Temple, there's a Legion. These are all denominations of Freemasonry. They're all Freemasons, but they start denominations and stuff like that. So every single community, and I've been documenting it all along the way. I go to the lodges, I knock on the door, see if I got an answer. And in North Bay specifically, they have an old lodge. And when I went to knock on the door, I noticed right above the door handle is the all-seeing eye.
Yes.
So people are saying, oh yeah, the all-seeing eye is the symbol of the Illuminati and the secret societies. It is. It's a reality. You could say I'm a conspiracy theorist all you want, but the facts are there. That is their symbol, and it's right on their lodges, right on the front doors of their lodges. So I haven't talked to a Mason yet. I've knocked on the doors and nobody's answered, but I've seen Masonic temples and lodges in towns like Sundridge. The population's 1,000 people. It's a very small place, but they still have a Mason lodge. So, and it's one of the oldest buildings in the community. So if you do the math,
Yes.
it's pretty obvious, right?
They do have a great standing, obviously, throughout the countryside. I know that they perceive God as the architecture of the universe, which I think partly explains the eye as the all-seeing eye. I also understand that geometry is something huge for Freemasons.
Sacred geometry, yeah.
Sacred geometry, and we're based all on math. It's a math ethic, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it's true. Everything in nature contains the Fibonacci sequence, which is a series of numbers. Like it's like 1, 2, 3, 5. It's just like adding a number to the next number, and then you get the next denominations, right? And then there's whole numbers. It's very mathematically, but everything in nature, to the amount of leaves that sprout off of a plant, to the flowers, to the cauliflower, fractals, all of this is mathematical, and they understand that. They've understood that for hundreds. That's what I was saying earlier. That information comes from the mystery schools, from the Babylonian mystery schools, which predates Knights Templar. So the Knights Templar actually stole this knowledge and kept it secret. That's where the secret thing came into play, it was always secret, but the Templars were really trying to destroy the culture, and that comes from the church, from religion.
Yes.
So the Vatican, the religion, they've tried to keep this information from the public so that we can't have the knowledge, because knowledge is power. It truly is. Once you know about this stuff, people would revolt. If it became widespread knowledge, people would revolt, and that's why there is Masonic temples, so that you can get filtered out before you're accepted as a Mason. They have a ball.
Yes.
You get a black ball and you're not allowed into the Masons, right? They do this ball thing.
Yes.
And they do a bit of background check on you to make sure that you're not going to threaten their power structure.
They also are highly religious, from what I understand.
Yeah, you have to believe in a God to become a Mason.
Right.
It doesn't matter what God it is, you have to believe in a higher being, a creator.
Than ourselves.
And that's a big thing right there, right? Because we have the power, not something out there, not anything like that. It's our choices. Like if I wanted to take a drink of that right now, it wouldn't be a God that would put that drink to my mouth and make me drink it. That's my hand moving, because my brain is saying, okay, there we go, I'm going to take a drink.
But some would argue and say that it was his intention or her intention to have you pick up that drink.
But it's not. It was a thought in my mind that wanted me to do that. Because it's just like if I wanted to get out of the seat and walk over there, I could do that. It's my own choices, and it's always been our choices which created this world. The person who invented that barbecue over there, he had an idea to make a device that would cook food outside on propane. So he or she developed that invention and made it a reality. So that's what it's always taken, is our own willpower to create this whole planet, everything that we have in this world.
But again, there could be the argument that that is all put in place, that those thoughts were placed into your head, that there is an influence from an entity that you're not aware of.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's what they want you to think.
That's just an argument, not to say that I truly believe.
Yeah, it's a way to separate somebody's power and willpower, I guess you could say. And this is something I wanted to say too in this interview. I've never said this before anywhere publicly in any of my films or anything like this, but this is a theory actually walking down the highway that I came up with not too long ago. And I think it makes sense, actually. with the religion thing, you know what I mean? Religion, people put their faith in God, and then therefore they feel like they're insuperior and they can't do anything. It's God that makes all their decisions, right? So that kind of limits people's power. Now think about this. The aliens, that's another thing. People could say it's aliens, that there's aliens out there and all this stuff. Now think about this very, very, very deeply and consider this. The alien agenda came out in the essentially 40s, Roswell, New Mexico. They found a plane, a UFO, the saucer that crashed, which was essentially military technology. They built that because they had that kind of technology back then. The Nazis were doing it. They were developing the real technology and all that stuff. So they had the technology to build these spacecraft, and then they crashed it. Now, if you think about this, we're the aliens. This is my theory. We are the aliens. Because right now, in our current state of life, we're trying to get outside of this planet. We're trying to go discover other places, right? Now, who's to say that didn't happen a long time ago, and that's how we got here?
In the first place.
In the first place.
Right.
So what better way to trick the whole human race than to tell them that there's something else out there that's not us, but it's something else, and then put out a big propaganda campaign to make it seem like there's something else out there that is not us. And the CIA and the military were the ones putting out all this information. And those agencies are the ones that are essentially responsible for a lot of the deception and the lies. You have the CIA and the FBI filtering the news through Project Mockingbird and Bluebird and all those programs where they have infiltrated the media so that they can be sure that what they're putting out is propaganda. And it makes us think a certain way or believe a certain thing, right? And I don't think it's too hard to believe that we came here a long time ago, and that's why we're seeing on the Sumerian tablets and on Egyptian pyramids something coming from another place down to here. They were explaining to us how we got here. You know what I mean?
Yes.
How we got to this place. And
the Aztecs.
then
too.
the CIA and the military decided, okay, let's trick the human race and tell them that it wasn't human beings. It was some little gray men. They look exactly like us. And they have black eyes. The eye is always used as well in that. So that's another kind of indicator that there's something secretive about this. But that's another way, just like with religion, to separate ourselves and think we're insuperior. And that's why you're seeing now that the government is releasing information about extraterrestrials and UFOs, and really there's no shred of evidence of it. You know what I mean? I've never seen an alien, you've never seen an alien, nobody in this world has ever seen an alien. Yet we're all supposed to believe that an alien came down here. Like, I don't think it's hard to believe that human beings are on another planet right now somewhere.
Interesting concept.
And yeah, I've never explained that to anybody before. I've kept that in and just thought about it and developed it. And that's a theory that I came up with. I can't prove it, obviously, but it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. It's really logical to me, I would think.
I've spoken to some people who think that since the Roswell days, the technology of mankind has increased 100-fold since that time period.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be because there were secrets to be found if they truly were aliens that crashed? Why is it that all of a sudden we're propelling ourselves technologically?
It's not just spacecraft or anything like that. We're advancing everything, everything, and that's evolution. Human evolution is what's happening.
Are we tapping into something that we didn't tap into before?
We're just getting smarter when we teach each other things and we talk to each other. That's when we're really going to learn and evolve, and that's what's happening with the internet right now, because we are connected all over the world. Ideas transfer way faster, and then they get developed faster. So what happened in the 40s with Roswell and all that stuff is they already had these spacecrafts, and they were just developing new forms of spacecraft and new technologies, anti-gravity devices and all that stuff. And the Masons actually are the ones who are really putting this out there, like Ancient Aliens and all that show. That's all knowledge that Masons learn about, and they don't tell anybody. The Bermuda Triangle, ley lines, all that kind of stuff is what essentially Masons are learning about. Sacred geometry, the way nature works, all that stuff. So when I was really thinking about this, I'm like, they have an agenda, and what is their agenda? And it just really, it really clicked to me one day that the alien thing could be a way to get us to believe that it wasn't us who came here a long time ago. It was something else. And I've never seen an alien. I mean, if somebody could show me an alien out there, please do, because then I would believe you. But if nobody can provide that evidence, then I need evidence to believe what I believe in. You know what I mean?
See it.
I need to see it. I need to know that it's tangible.
Right.
And I don't know. I think a lot of people have been tricked in many ways, not just the alien thing or anything like that. But that's just one thing out of many that I've theorized about, stuff like that. But I really do try to, when I do say things, I really do try to avoid theories. I try to stick to facts, so that it's people can't argue with it and they accept the truth. That's important to me, I think.
So that this is a mission of truth for you. You had touched on social media exploding and how we're able to communicate and breach ideas to each other. Why not just stick to social media in this March of Freedom? Why take this to the street, to the road?
Because I'm only one person, and a lot of people out there have tried spreading awareness using social media, and it doesn't work.
So you feel you're
people are awakening.
Gaining more ground?
Yeah, definitely. People are awakening, but when you actually do something, like a protest is a perfect example. People get sick of the problems because they keep talking about it, and then you got the gatekeepers, like the media and the government, that are saying, nope, we're not going to let this happen, we're not going to let this happen, we're not going to admit to this, we're going to put out propaganda to confuse you and all this stuff. And it's the people that actually stepped forward and did something about it that ever made a change in this world.
So why should I believe you, Mark? Why should I believe your March of Freedom?
Don't believe me. That's one thing I tell everybody I meet. Don't believe a word I say. Go out and do the research yourself and find the facts for yourself, because that's what I did, and that's what's needed. Because you'll come to your own conclusion, and the facts are out there. You know what I mean? If I'm telling you something, don't believe it, just go and look it up yourself. And if I'm lying, you'll find out very fast.
So you don't want to be a dictator yourself. You
No.
want to be able to plant a seed and have people do their own research and their own conclusions.
Yes, exactly. William Cooper was a really big influence on me, actually, into looking into this stuff. And he was killed on his front doorstep protecting his house. Many people don't know about this, but he wrote a book called Behold a Pale Horse. And that book really opened my eyes, and watching his lectures and stuff like that really opened my eyes. And he even said what I just said, don't believe a word I'm saying, go look it up for yourself. And I did that. I took his advice, and that's how I learned so much about all this stuff. And I mean, I did put out the theory about the alien thing, that's only one thing, but the reality is there is homelessness, there is wars, there is Monsanto putting GMO foods, there is fluoride in the water, there is all this stuff that's real. You know what I mean? It's not a theory. It's real stuff.
You don't have to look too far to find the truth if you just look.
And I'm trying to not just promote one issue. I'm trying to promote the whole picture, so that there could be a solution to solve all the problems. Because if you're focusing on one, all the other problems go unchecked. But if you're focusing on it all, then you can actually nail it all in one shot and try to make a difference and change everything, rather than wasting time on one thing. It could take a lifetime just to get rid of fluoride or spread awareness about the fluoridation in the water, like hydrosilicic fluoric acid. Sorry, that's a tongue twister word. That's the term for it, the professional scientific term for it. But yeah, you could spend a lifetime focusing on one thing, and then all the other problems just go unchecked, and they'll just continue to grow. And there's other ways that these companies, corporations, leaders, government people will deceive us. You know what I mean? They'll put a little bit of truth out and then hide it with a bit of untruth. And that's another, that actually comes from military intelligence, MI5, British intelligence, founded by John Dee, Queen Elizabeth I. John Dee was a black magician, essentially. He translated Necronomicon, apparently, and he was actually the founder of British intelligence. So he was, James Bond was actually created after John Dee, his character, and Merlin as well. Merlin, any wizards, you got Sauron, you got all these people in all these TV shows and movies. They're all based off of John Dee's character. And John Dee was an occultist, he was a philosopher, he was all sorts of things, right? And it's been happening for so many years. And I just felt it was time to really focus on things and do what I could, even as one person, one human being, do what I can. Because then people if I die, when I die, whenever that time may be, they can look back at what I've done and say, okay, he actually did something to try to make a difference. You know what I mean? And whether how small it is or how big it is, I at least tried, and I would feel better going to my grave knowing that I did try, and that my children can grow up and like.
Would you say then this would be a legacy you would like to leave your children?
Yeah, definitely. Like, my kids are really important to me, but it's not just my kids. You have kids. A lot of people have kids, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not our world, it's their world. They're going to be the ones who inherit this. And it hurts me a lot. It really does hurt me a lot to know that we could leave behind the worst world ever for our children, and they could suffer more than we have.
So Mark, how would you define yourself? How do you see yourself when you look in the mirror and you've taken this all upon yourself? How do you view yourself?
Now,
Yes.
I picture myself as a changed individual. When I was younger, I was a product of the music I listened to. I was a product of the environment, the news that I was watching. I was very hateful. A lot of people know me as that person because they knew me when I was growing up, and I was really rebellious and violent. I did do a lot of mistakes when I was younger, but you learn from your mistakes. And that's one thing, when I look in the mirror, I look at somebody who learned from their mistakes, and I see I'm not the same person I was even a couple years ago. I really am not. I'm totally different, and I think that's, everybody goes through that. It's not just me, it's everybody does grow. Because when you stop growing, it's just like in nature. When a plant stops growing, it dies. So if we stop growing, then we're waiting to die. And we need to grow. We have to all grow, and we have to keep growing. And growing is education and learning about ourselves and the world and everybody else. And when you stop learning, I don't want to see this world in that phase. I think the world is a living being itself almost. It's like it has an energy, a life force about it, and we contribute to that. And I don't want to see this world dying. You know, I don't want to see this world die off. Especially for my children and for your children, for all of our children and their grandchildren. I think it's important that we think about that. We don't think about now, but we think about the future. And we think about how easy it is to just make a simple change in our life by the decisions we make, by the information that we learn, by what we say to each other, how we act to each other. All those things are so important. And when you don't think about that and you just trample all over everybody, that's not going to make our world a better place. It's going to make it worse, and I see that happening now, you know. And it's really, this is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I guarantee it. I've never done anything this hard. And it's hard mentally, emotionally, physically. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. But I feel it's the right thing to do. And I could say that I've left from Sudbury and I've walked to the Atlantic Ocean and I've talked to hundreds of people along the way, and I've heard their concerns. I've heard what they feel is important to them, and I'm learning from that so that I could teach others what other people think. And then if the government does want to listen to me, or the news wants to listen to me, then I could say I have actually spoken to people all over this country and I know what they're concerned about firsthand. I haven't seen any politician do that ever. Never seen them canvass such a large area and figure out what's going on, because they have an agenda. They want to maintain the status quo. They want to maintain the cyclical destruction that's going on. And I don't know. Do I think that this is going to make a difference or not? I don't know. And I hope it does. But there's more important things. I don't know. It's hard to explain.
I think it's rather courageous of you to walk away from your family life, especially
That was hard, yeah.
to have your wife and children back home in Sudbury. But they must be very proud of you. In their hearts, they know that this is the right thing to do, and I know they support you.
Mm-hmm. I would never have left if they didn't. I really wouldn't have. If they didn't support what I'm doing, I would never have left. And if I didn't know that my family had good friends and family back home, mm-hmm. that would help them in my absence, mm-hmm. then I would never have left. But I knew that by doing this, I knew that they would come together almost and help that. And maybe the most important thing is people to ask the question, why? Why is he doing this? Because when they ask why, the answers are there, and that's the education. They'll ask why, and they'll figure it out, why I'm doing this and how important it is, I think, for all of us. And even if I'm walking alone, even if nobody else joins me and comes with me, I feel that other people are walking with me the whole way. They're inside me, they're within me, I feel their energy, I feel the support, and that's why, that gives me strength to keep going, really, it does.
I think you will find a lot of like-minded people who probably didn't have the courage to step out, and now when they come to meet you and listen to you, perhaps at a lecture, they will finally have that courage. And I believe your organization is branching out throughout Canada and the world. Did you want to just touch on that before we finish off?
The World Public Union?
Yes.
Yeah, the World Public Union I started in 2011. It was actually an idea I had to make a difference on a local level, because I understand that locally is where you can really make a difference, because each community is essentially designed the same way, with governments and all that, and banks and religion and all this stuff. And if we come together locally and then connect globally, it would make a big difference. And the World Public Union, I don't want people to think I'm the leader of that group, because I'm not the leader of that group. The World Public Union is a group of leaderless leaders, if that makes sense. Leaderless leaders. We don't have a leader.
People
we are
who want to
all our own.
contribute.
Yes, and we all have our own skill sets, right? We all have our own interests. If one person is interested in fluoride and is educated about it, then they can help the person who's against political corruption and scandals, or election frauds, or whatever is going on. Everybody has their own interests, and when we all come together with these skill sets, we can really make a better community. And it starts locally. You put the unity back in community, and it really does make a difference.
Commune's also in there. Would
Yeah,
that come to mind?
commune, I believe, is just the word, an establishment, I think. I'm not exactly 100% sure what the word commune means.
It
I've
has
never looked it
negative
up.
connotations in the political world, but ideally a commune could be what you're just speaking of. As in the movie with M. Night Shyamalan, The Village, they were a commune in essence. They created their own community. They didn't have the need for money. They built their own community based on exactly what we were talking about. So-and-so could do this skill, so-and-so could do that skill, and that's how they ended up living in their little community.
Yeah, that's it right there. Perfect. That's what I'm trying to do, really. Because that's what it's going to take. It really is. And we can make the decisions now to not buy GMO foods, or to not buy certain products, to not buy into this, to not get a credit card, so that these credit card companies aren't making the profit from the interest. Also, free education is another big thing. They have that in Scandinavia. They have free education. If you want to go and be a lawyer, they'll pay for that. You'll get free schooling. But in Canada, we don't have that. America doesn't have that. America doesn't even have free healthcare. So that's another thing. Universal free healthcare, universal free education, universal free water, universal free food, universal free electricity, because we can power things by the sun.
Yes.
Solar vehicles, and then the oil companies don't want that, because they're pumping gas out and they're making money. That's what's causing global warming, and the carbon increase in the air is because we're using old ancient technology just to profit these people, just that these people can make profits, right? But we do have the power to have a solar vehicle, to power our vehicle off the sun. It wouldn't cost us anything. A friend of mine, Anthony Costello, actually built a self-sustaining power unit when he lived in North Bay, and it cost him about $2,000 in supplies, and which is quite a bit of money. But if you think about this, it's a device that you put in your home, and it powers your whole house. And you could power things outside of your house. If you have a vehicle, a solar vehicle, you could charge your vehicle that way. It cost him $2,000 to make that, and that was a life investment. Like, he would never have to pay hydro again. And then the hydro company seen that there was no wires to his house, and they came knocking on his door, and they shut him down.
I see.
So now he's giving the blueprints out. I have the blueprints. If anybody wants it, I'll send it to them. He's giving it out for free, because he thinks that people need to know this stuff, and if you can power your whole house for your life, then why not? And then eventually we'd get to the point where the supplies to build this wouldn't cost anything, because it's for the benefit of humanity. I think if we're doing no harm, then we're doing the right thing. No matter what it is, as long as it's not harming anybody, then there's nothing wrong with that.
Let's live for free will.
Exactly, and that's what's needed.
Before we finish off, would you mind letting everyone know perhaps your website and any kind of addresses or emails that they can get in touch with you should they wish to?
Yeah, there's a March of Freedom on Facebook. You can give that page a like, and I write journals on that page, a daily journal, just to let them know what I went through each day along this journey. There's also the World Public Union website, worldpublicunion.org. I'm looking for other people that know how to use HTML and know how to design websites so that there could be much more news articles and information posted to the site, because it's really hard to do it all myself. Like I really do believe that we need to work together, and I guess I threw the stone, I guess you could say, but it's up to others to also keep the momentum going, I guess, and contribute to that, because I can't do this alone. It's going to take everybody that wants to make a difference. And then once there's a majority that do believe in this stuff and they are contributing to a better world, then that's going to become a trend. And that's what we need. We need this to become trendy, like Nikes or Pogs when we were kids. We need this to become a trend. We need truth and wisdom and caring and unity to become trendy. And the media has to start talking about this. They can't ignore it. Too many of us know. And from walking from where I did to here in Scarborough, just that whole journey, all the people I've talked to, it's 99% and 1%. That's a legitimate percentage. 99% of the people out there do care. They are caring, but there is and they do want to make a difference. And then the 1% are holding it back. And it's also evil and hatred. I see that in people, especially when I'm in bigger cities. I see people that are hardened by their life. But for the most part, there's a way higher percentage of people that do care and they do want to see a positive change, and that's given me hope as well. Because if all those people joined together, then it would squash out all the darkness. And there's a big famous quote here. You could fill a room full of darkness and turn on a light, and all that darkness goes away. But you can't do the opposite. Impossible to do the opposite. And that's the mentality we need to really look for.
Thank you for being the light for us here today.
And the Masons will say, seek the light, because they know this. They know this, but I don't know if they're helping, you know? It doesn't seem like it, because they're still...
They probably have their own agenda still.
Yeah, I think they do. Some of them do have their own agenda, yeah, for sure. But it is very truthful. The light is much powerful than the darkness, and that's why I've kind of changed my tune, I guess, you know what I mean? When I was younger, I was in death metal bands and singing about gore and horror movies and hatred and violence and all that stuff, and I wasn't sure why I was doing it. I was just, oh yeah, I'm doing it just to be cool, to fit in with the metal genre, to fit in with this. But now I've stepped outside of the box and I see what was happening, and I've tried to be a better person, and it has made me a better person, I think. And the people I meet are much more positive too. So that's another really important thing, because I'm not surrounded by evil, hateful people that will steal from me or stab me in the back or anything. It was a naturopath here in Toronto, and so I'm trying to meet with people that are professionals that are already involved with this, because that's who it's going to take too. It's going to take us all to come together, no matter what skill set we have, and then we can make a better world. And I think it's already starting. It just needs the right push, and then everybody already right now just follows the system. You know what I mean? They just go to work. They don't question anything. But if you actually had a better world and it was changed, they would still do the same thing. They would still support that better world, and that's what's needed.
Thanks so much for talking with us today, Mark.
Thank you.
I wish you the best of luck in your march.
You.
And I know that you'll have a lot more people supporting you after all of this.
It's important that people know why, because a lot of people they're not sure why I'm doing this, and I thank you for allowing me to take this time to speak and to let people know why I'm doing this.
I'm on the same path as you, so I understand, and thank you again.
Because we love. Indeed.
Thank you.
doing with woven ancestry and stuff, the lyrics that I was writing and stuff. A lot of it's reflected in that. But that's kind of like what got me to the awakening process. I don't know, it's when 9/11 happened, I knew something was different about that, and that really shocked me, to see that.
Yes.
And that was the year my grandfather died, and I was working a job at a call center, and I went to work, and they're like, we're shut down. We're not going to be calling the United States during this time.
Right.
And that was our clientele. So I essentially got laid off from work because of that. And that's kind of like the beginning of when I started looking into things a little bit more. I wasn't really aware of 9/11, the details of that right away. It took me a few years to actually dig into it and figure out what happened there. But that's kind of, I'd say it was around 2006, 2007 when I really started waking up and wanting to know about this stuff.
Yes, about the awakening. And the moment of awakening for you was in 2007, 2006.
Yeah, I explained that on the video,
Yes.
I think.
And so from there,
Exist, and I realized that, which is why the idea for the reality show came into play. That was actually a recent development that just I made documentaries, so I figured why not do something different, a reality show, and make it a real reality show, not like a fictional reality show, because you'll see a lot of fictional reality shows out there where people have to sign waiver forms and it's all pre-planned. A lot of these reality shows, so-called reality shows,
Right.
and this is a real reality show, and it's for a good cause, I think. So that's kind of like what led me to do this.
so would you say your awakening was in 2011?
No, it was before that. I've been making documentaries since 2009, and even before that, I was learning a lot about different things that were going on in the world. A lot of it was secret knowledge, ancient wisdom, stuff like that. I was really into history and psychology, biology, physics, so many topics that I was really trying to get a good understanding on, and I think that's kind of reflected too in the music that over the last couple of years. And it was something I didn't know like exactly the details or when I would do it or anything like that, but I just had a feeling that it was going to happen, like I needed to do something. And so the March of Freedom idea came into play, and I told the best man at my wedding, Mike Baricelli. He actually helped me run the record label too, Archaic North. He was like co-owner, I guess you could say. I told him about it a little while ago, and he was pretty shocked, I guess. But he knew I was going to do it. Like, he knew that when I say something, I'm going to do it. So he was like just wondering when I was going to do it, I guess, like what time. And I just felt there were certain things that happened in my life that led me to make the decision that now is the time. And I didn't want to tell anybody about it, because then you'd have people saying, oh, that's crazy, or you'd have people try to stop you, right? And I knew that this is something so important that I didn't want to be stopped. I had to already be, like, it's one thing to look over the cliff, right? And then when you jump, there's no turning back, and that's where I wanted to be. I wanted to be one step over, already involved with it, no turning back whatsoever. So I decided to do that because of several things, really. The record label is one thing. I was a stay-at-home dad taking care of my two kids while my wife went to work, and I was trying to run my own business at home, doing the record label thing, running the World Public Union, making documentaries, doing all that kind of thing. Just an artistic creation, because I've always been into creating things and music and stuff like that. So my wife came home one day and she said, I got laid off from my job. And I was like, really? I'm like, I knew it was going to happen. I knew that she was going to get laid off, because I see a massive increase. They're saying that in the next 10 years there could be 85% job loss due to technological unemployment. So this is the beginning of it. This is the beginning phase. So many people I know are getting laid off now, and it's quickly coming. Like, it's more and more, it's becoming more apparent. And instead of putting a band-aid over the problem, I wanted to go right to the source of the problem and do something about it rather than just ignore it. I could have went and got a job and just supported the system and took care of my family that way, but then the problems would still
March of Freedom.
Indeed.
Started July the 17th of this year, but that's the actual physical march. Please give us a little lowdown on what brought you to doing March of Freedom this year.
It was something that deep down inside I knew would happen eventually. I even had an idea in about 2011 after Egypt started protesting and stuff like that. I knew that it was almost time that people were waking up and they wanted change and they were demanding change, and there was people all over the world fighting for that. And I knew that I wanted to help with that some way, and there was an idea to just walk to Ottawa at first, to Parliament Hill, and this was in 2011, so this is a couple years ago. But it developed